Welcome to the Freedom Works. Today you're getting a lesson on oil pans and shady marketing tactics. And I've got a feeling I'm gonna lose some subs over this one, so let's get it over with. Your pan's a turd. The designer made an oversight. 10,000-mile oil changes. Don't be a sucker. Directly on the floor. Completely missed the drain bucket. Yep, missed it. Guess voila. Screw it in until the pan cracks. Never thought I'd be shooting a video on oil pans, but here I am, living the dream. And I'm not doing this video because I think you need an aftermarket oil pan. It's because there's some really suspect marketing out there on the topic, and I don't want you to fall victim to it. And I'm not trying to influence you to buy something you don't really need. Your testosterone does that for me. I'm about influencing you to make poor financial decisions based on facts, mostly. So here's the roadmap for this video. First, I'm going to discuss the shortcomings of the 6.6 liter Duramax oil pan. Then, I'll show you the upgrade options and help you sort through the marketing BS. This is the part that'll hurt some butts and burn some bridges, but that's okay. And finally, I'll spill things and make mistakes while installing these on the old Duramax. And this one's heavy. But first, did you know that Buell motorcycles use the swing arm as the sump for their engines? Yep, that big fat swing arm is basically the oil pan for that Harley V-twin engine. Quite nifty. And by the way, the frame of the bike is also its fuel tank. I doubt these are exclusive to Buell motorcycles, but I've always been a fan of American V-twin crotch rockets with gobs of torque and lackluster performance. Apparently other Americans didn't share my enthusiasm for these scooters because Harley stopped building them in 2009. So sad. So why am I talking about oil pans? And Duramax oil pans specifically? Well, it's because you guys told me about this pan's dirty little secret. My comments section blew up with folks telling me about the design of the Duramax oil pan that caused it to retain nearly a quart of oil after fully drained. And that was in fact a fact. There's a large hump here in the pan and a poor drain plug bung design that causes this pan to retain a bunch of old oil, nearly a quart. And at face value, that sounds bad, because when you change the oil, you're pouring 10 quarts of fresh oil on top of nearly a quart of used oil. So that's like 9% old oil. I'm asked it, is that ideal? No. But is it really detrimental to engine life? Also no. Probably. Hear me out. When OEMs set engine oil change intervals, they are primarily concerned with contamination and depletion of the additive package in the oil. It's not because the oil will become radioactive, toxic, poisonous, or infected with chlamydia after 3,000, 5,000, or 10,000 miles. It's not milk. It's dinosaur juice. It doesn't spoil. That 0.69 quarts of residual oil simply adds a little bit of contamination to the new oil and dilutes the additive package of the new oil ever so slightly. But the engineers took that into account when they established the oil change intervals. Could they have established a slightly longer oil change interval with a different pan design? Sure, they could have made the pan bigger like the 7.3 Power Stroke. It holds 15 quarts. Would it have mattered though? Nope. You would still change your oil every 6,900 miles because you know that the OEM is just trying to screw you over with their 10,000 mile oil change recommendations. Guess what? That 7.3 Power Stroke has 2 quarts of residual oil left in it after you drain the oil. That's 12% old oil. That's worse than the Duramax, but nobody's losing their mind over that. Yet. So if you haven't figured it out yet, I personally don't think the factory oil pan holding residual dirty oil presents an issue that you need to worry about. I think it isn't ideal, but I also think it isn't a problem. My Duramax has routinely gone 10,000 miles between oil changes, and the used oil analyses always come back great. Yes, I said 10,000 mile oil changes. Call me stupid in the comments because it helps the algorithm. But my used oil analyses say that 10,000 miles is more than adequate for my operating condition. So, science. But this isn't about need. This is America, the land of excess. I don't need bacon. I need chicken because vegetables are healthy, but I want bacon because it's bacon. You don't need an oil pan upgrade, but you want one, and I'm going to help you make a wise choice while spending your money in an unwise fashion. Now, I don't have this oil pan because I'm worried about a little residual oil being held in my engine against its will at oil change time. I have this oil pan because I wanted to install temperature sensors to feed into my Edge CTS3 monitor. It's got a bung for a temperature sensor. It's that simple. But I figured if I'm going to go to the trouble of pulling off the pans to weld in 8th MPT bungs for my sensors, I might as well just go ahead and install aluminum pans and get the added benefits of more capacity, better cooling, better drainage, and credit card debt. It's the American way. Dude, freaking hole in my lip. Why can I not hit my mouth? But hey, maybe you are actually concerned about draining every last bit of residual oil out of your Dirty Max. And that's why you want to upgrade your oil pan. And that's fine. Whatever helps you sleep better at night. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it, because as much as I think it's not an issue, I also think that cleaner oil is better oil, and I'd be foolish to argue otherwise. And I've also compiled a list of additional reasons that you can share with your wife to justify your purchase. For my Canadian viewers, your factory oil pan rusted out, and installing another steel oil pan would just be foolish. For my Texans, an armored possum smashed your pan, and this new pan is bulletproof. The black version of this pan is tactical, so that makes it bulletproof, I think. And for my city boys, you're building a SEMA truck and you want a fancy oil pan to distract people from the fact that the truck doesn't even have a front drive shaft. Valid reason. All right, let's move on to part 2, upgrade options. This is the don't be a sucker, buy the right pan part of the video. PPE, AFE, Duramax Store, Banks, etc. They're all good pans. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of them. They all provide benefits and added features over the factory stamped steel oil pan. And I'd probably run any of them. Probably. They're all made of aluminum, which is more thermally conductive than steel. So they all provide some level of thermal management benefits. Heat degrades oil, so if you can keep the oil cooler, it can last longer. They all hold more oil than a stock pan. They generally have an additional 1 or 2 quarts of capacity. This PPE pan holds 1 extra quart, and more oil is more better. They all have relatively flat, sloped bottoms, which provides a more complete drain when you're changing your oil. Some might drain marginally better than others, which honestly does not concern me because there will always be residual oil in every engine, period. Some have drain plugs on the side, some on the bottom. Bottom mounted plugs make it easier to hit the drain pan, but side mounted plugs are better protected. But I can spill the oil regardless of where the plug's located. It's my superpower. Some have magnets in the drain plug, and some don't. Some of these magnets are stronger than others, allegedly. I personally use Fumoto valves, so I don't really care either way. The Duramax Store pan can actually be bought with an oversized Fumoto, which I think is a cool feature for all you people that actually change your oil. Not me, I do science. Some have cooling fins. Some have taller cooling fins. Some have internal fins that run perpendicular or diagonal to the external fins. There are reasons for both approaches. Some have more gusseting, and some have less. Some have a raw finish, and some are black. The black ones obviously make your truck stronger and faster, and tactical. Some have a scalloped gasket mating surface, and some have a flat mating surface. I think you get the point. They all have different design features, and the manufacturer generally puts those features there for a specific reason. And yes, maybe some of those features were put there by mistake, or because the designer made an oversight. Or maybe, just maybe, each manufacturer or designer had a different objective in mind when producing the pan. Some designs optimize for strength and robustness, while others might optimize for temperature reduction. One might be better for an off-road rig, while another might be better for a pavement pounder. And this is the point of the video. Make sure you're buying the right product for the right reasons. And that's not an oil pan thing. That's an everything thing. Turbos, guns, prophylactics, bacon. Let's use trucks as an example. If you want a truck that can almost survive a whistling diesel video, you probably want an underpowered overseas Toyota Hilux. If you want a truck that gets good fuel economy and isn't really a truck but plays one on TV, buy a Honda Ridgeline. If you want a truck that'll bomb through the desert or the Starbucks parking lot on the way to your spray tan appointment, then buy a Ford Raptor R. They're all trucks. Almost. And they are all designed for completely different purposes. And I actually like Ford Raptors, by the way. I personally wanted a pan with a 1/8 MPT fitting, good drainage, a side-mounted drain plug, and a robust design from an honest and reputable company that stood behind their product. So PPE is what I picked. I don't care about magnets, cooling fins, or any other features or gimmicks that are out there, because I don't even use a drain plug. And the reality of it is, the additional cooling that one of these pans provides you, relative to what the oil cooler is actually doing, is marginal, probably. I didn't math it, and I couldn't find a good study, so link one in the description if you have it. Otherwise, just tell me I'm wrong in the comments to boost the algorithm. Now, maybe you want a pan with the drain plug on the bottom. Maybe you want a pan with a built-in turbo drain bung for that compound setup you don't need. Maybe you want one with a magnet strong enough to stick to aluminum. Maybe you want an oil pan with cooling fins long enough to plow a field, so that your oil can be 0.1 freedom units cooler than everybody else's. Cool. Buy a pan with those features, but be a smart consumer. Don't be a mindless sheep and just buy something because Company X puts their name on it. Spitting on my camera. Especially if that unnamed company is bashing other companies with false claims due to their own ignorance or just outright dishonesty. Unless you're okay with that, you do you. Now, having seen a competitor's video, I sent my PPE guy an email and I said, hey, PPE guy, I want a Duramax engine oil pan, but the other guy just said your pan's a turd. What's the deal? He said your pans are sand cast and have residual sand in them that's going to hurt my engine. He said your internal cooling fins are facing the wrong way. He said you guys should have done your research so you would have chosen stronger magnets. And he said you guys were dumb for machining these grooves into your gasket mating surface. And my PPE guy said, well, it's unfortunate that those things were stated, but here are some truths about our aluminum pans. PPE aluminum pans are not sand cast. They're actually manufactured using permanent steel mold casting. They actually sent me a picture of the permanent steel mold for this pan. So there's that. And permanent mold casting actually produces a stronger part than the die cast molding that the competitor uses. Well, that's an interesting plot twist. The surface finish of PPE pans isn't from sand casting. It's from shot peening, which actually hardens the surface and improves the fatigue strength. Seems like that other company should probably know the difference. PPE pans use A356 T6 aluminum, which conducts heat better than the stock stamped steel pan and the competitor's A380 aluminum. The PPE internal fins are specifically designed to run diagonal or perpendicular to the external fins to form a cross bracing structure together with the external fins. This is for better load distribution under impact. This makes the pan stronger and more durable. Now, this early Duramax pan doesn't have internal cooling fins like the later ones, but the Trans pan provides a good example of this. The neodymium, how do you even say that? The neodymium magnets in the PPE drain plugs are actually 4 to 7 times stronger than the competitors' strontium ferrite magnets. Now, strontium magnets are stronger at extremely high temperatures, like if you're driving a submarine inside of an active volcano. Actually sounds pretty cool. The factory upper oil pan and the factory lower oil pan both have these grooves in the gasket surface to help stabilize the RTV layer and keep it in place when subjected to differential thermal expansion between the engine components. So PPE put these grooves there for the same reason the OEM put them there. So maybe a better question is why the competitors chose not to incorporate them. So there you go, straight from the manufacturer. Now, you might be asking yourself why you should believe PPE's facts versus the competitor's facts. Well, it's not my job to make you believe. You'll believe what you want to believe. I'm not going to try to convince you which company is better or which facts are facts any more than I would try to convince you to buy a different brand of truck or switch political parties. My goal is to provide you with relevant information so you can make your own informed decision when wasting your money on truck parts. Now, like I said earlier, I wanted temperature sensors, and that was the driving factor in installing these pans. But I'm also testing bypass filtration systems on this truck. That's what this is all about, centrifuge filter. And not because I'm trying to sell you bypass systems, but because I'm trying to save the dinosaurs, especially the purple dinosaurs. You see, there's groups of people out there, boomers and Gen Xers like myself, that grew up on the 3,000-mile oil change. And like meth and bacon, it's a hard habit to break. And I'm just trying to demonstrate to them, us, that dinosaur juice doesn't spoil like 2% milk when it's been in the engine for 3 months or 3,000 miles. And my best option to demonstrate that is in an overly dramatic fashion, by not changing my engine oil for years and tens of thousands of miles for science. So for the best chance of success, I want the bigger sump capacity, better drainage, and cooler looks. So you'll probably want to subscribe if you want to see me triumph over oil changes with a centrifuge filter, or if you just want to say I told you so when my engine grenades itself. Either way, every subscriber counts. Okay, now that all the fanboys of that other company have unsubscribed from my channel, let's put this nonsense on the truck. All right, let's go get this truck in here and get it up on the jack stands. Change engine oil. Ha! Never. All right, Harbor Freight jack and 2x4s. My jack ain't jacking. Some of them. Sometimes you gotta lubricate these things. If anybody out there makes a good jack, send it to me. Lawsuit jack stand. Probably won't die. What could go wrong? Okay, we've actually got a whole lot going on here. I'm putting on PPE engine oil pan and transmission pan so I can add temperature sensors for engine oil and trans oil to hook up to my ED CTS3. And I'm doing that in preparation for installing a different engine oil bypass system on the Duramax. The AMSOIL system didn't work out for me, so now I've actually got two choices. I've got the centrifuge from PPE, and I've got the toilet paper style filter from Hot Shots. I'd love to run them both, but I can't because the Hot Shots drains into the filler neck for the oil, and the PPE centrifuge filter actually replaces the filler neck for the oil, so that just doesn't work. So, here's my plan. I'm going to put the PPE centrifuge on the Duramax, because that's the only thing that'll fit, and then I'm going to put the France/Hot Shot filter on the 7.3 in my Excursion. In addition, I'm also taking 4 samples of oil to go to 4 different oil analysis labs because I get a bunch of questions from people about where they should get their oil analyzed. And honestly, I've always used the same lab, but for me to provide an unbiased answer, I'm going to send a sample to 4 different labs. Then I'm going to do a video talking about how it all went down. Price, speed, accuracy, science, and economics. Also, this sample is part 2 to this sample, which is for a test of oil filter magnet. So, you've got an oil filter magnet video coming up, and you've got an oil analysis lab video coming up. So my advice would be to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment, maybe the notification bell, all that crap that helps me grow the channel. Okay, the engine oil and transmission oil have been draining for an hour, and they'll obviously never stop dripping. So I want to put the plug back in, close the Fumoto, pull the filters off, and then probably go ahead and take the skid plate and the cross member off, and then get ready to pull that lower engine oil pan off. Now, as you have come to expect from me, even with 2 gigantic oil pans, I managed to pour the oil directly on the floor in between the 2. I can't recall if the instructions said to take these transmission cooler lines loose or not, but I did. Looks like it's going to make pulling the pan a lot easier. And as you would expect, I completely missed the drain bucket again. What can I say, folks? When you got it, you got it. Okay, obviously I've got the factory pan out. Not a big deal. A bunch of 10mm bolts, 2 studs on the back, So there'll be 2 nuts, and the studs will stay in the upper oil pan, but you do have to take those out before you put the new pan on, because the new pan has new hardware. Not a whole lot going on here. I took the Famoto valve, put it in the new PPE pan. The oil level sensor has to come out of the old pan. It's held in by this little tang here. You pop this tang out, He-man that through the hole. Take these 2 10mm bolts off, slap it in that pan. That pan will be ready to go, minus silicone. Then comes the fun part. I have to clean all the factory silicone off the bottom of the engine before I can put the new pan on. That's always the funnest part of one of these things. All right, the pan rail is basically cleaned off, aside from that trail of oil right there, and we can wipe that off. But anyway, that's what the bottom of the LBT Duramax looks like. This is actually the bottom of the upper oil pan. So this isn't the engine block, this is the upper oil pan, in case you're wondering. And I've got me an adequately oversized bead of the AC Delco engine sealant on there. I'm sure somebody will tell me that that's way too much. Somebody will tell me it's not enough. Somebody will tell me I should have used ultra gray. And that's fine. Just put it down in the comments and let me know. I'm all about the learning. And it helps the algorithm. So I'm going to clean this out. That's clean enough. The filter will do the rest. And I'm going to go slap that on the truck with about 3 or 4 bolts. Fresh hardware. And I'm not going to film it because I need about 3 hands to do this, so I don't have a spare to hold a camera. Well, trust me, it's for the best. All right, so the oil pan is installed. One little hiccup though. This bell housing bolt was so long that it was interfering with the pan, so the pan couldn't slide back into place all the way. So, 15mm wrench, a 6-pack of beer and a file, or about 30 seconds with a death wheel, and you can fix that problem. Everything else goes together great. Now, the transmission lines hug up to this pan very close. They do not touch, but they are very close. That being said, they were just as close on the factory pan, so that's not a design issue. That's just the way the truck's built. I'm not worried about it. Where's my hat? I want my hat. Now I look like a YouTuber. And speaking of pre-filling oil filters, do you need to pre-fill the oil filter? For the most part, no. I've got a really good video where I installed 50 oil filters on a blown small block and showed that it made absolutely no difference in wear metal particles in the oil, so go check that out. It's in the description. But I am going to pre-fill this halfway because that pisses everybody off. And I'm going to be using some Hot Shot Secrets Diamond Outlaw 15W40 100% PAO oil. Now, 2 things about this oil. The additive package in this oil is so robust and it has so many vitamins and minerals, it could actually foul out your DPF. So, it's called outlaw oil because 1, it's for you outlaws that had deleted your DPF, or 2, no, that's it. That's why it's called outlaw. I'm not that person. I'm not an outlaw. I just drive old junk that never had emissions equipment on in the first place. So I can use the outlaw oil. If you've got a DPF, don't use it. So, big thanks to Hot Shot Secret for sending me this oil to try out. And big thanks to you for watching me try it. Now, let's half fill this oil filter. Great foil. Put some humidity in there. It's good for it. Fill it about 33% full. Some of that will spill. Tell you what, guys, this time I'm going to put fresh oil on the seal. Not because I'm afraid of dirty oil, but because I have fresh oil on my finger already. All right. Let's spill some expensive oil. Yep, I'm spilling oil. And of course, this is one of my favorite parts of the video where y'all tell me that I don't know how to pour oil. And I'll tell you the same thing I tell you every other video. I don't care how you pour oil. Yes, I know that if you pour oil like this, it won't glug. But you need to understand something. I crave the glug. I love the glug. I want you to experience the glug. And then leave a comment down below and tell me I'm an idiot, because that helps the algorithm. So normally an oil change on this truck takes 10 quarts. That pan holds an extra quart, so that means I need 11 quarts. So I'm going to be just shy, glug, 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 glug. I'm going to be just shy of 3 gallons when I'm done. And I just noticed that these jugs don't have any markings or gradation on there, so you know when you've used 1, 2, or 3 quarts. I guess the reasoning there is outlaws can't count. Or maybe outlaws don't measure. Either way, I can eyeball a quart. Probably. A few extra ounces here and there. It don't make a difference. I'm going to call that good. Just dropped the trans pan. You can see it over there. See that gigantic drain pan? Yep, missed it. As usual. Idiot. I wish I could tell y'all that I script stuff this way. I'm honestly just that good at spilling stuff. Alright, I'm prepping the trans pan to go on the Allison. I must say this is much easier than the engine oil pan. I'm putting in my temperature sensor to go to my ED CTS3. Pretty straightforward. There's 2 size bungs on here. I'm using the smaller bung. My little thing just won't feel those big bungs. Anyway, for pipe dope, I always use this stuff. I know it's probably pronounced gasola, but I feel like gasoila just sounds more sophisticated. So some gasoila on the temperature sensor and just screw it in until the pan cracks. That's a joke. You don't have to screw it that tight. That's what the pipe dope's for. So screw it in until it almost cracks the pan. Still joking. That won't leak. Reusable gasket on these transmissions, so I just cleaned that up. Now, deeper pan takes a deeper filter, as stated right there. So I had to go slap this bad boy in, and then we'll be ready to go. Just so you know what actually happened. There it is. PPE, deep pan, tactical, because it's black. Crisscross, 15 foot-pounds. Yes, I actually own torque wrenches. Now we just need filter and fluid. We're going with Mobile Delvac 1 because it's rated for the Allison, and it was the cheapest thing I could find that day. That's generally my go-to option, is the cheapest one that day. Filter-wise, PPE Double Deep Allison filter, and it's called the Double Deep for obvious reason. One last thing, make sure you move your magnet from your old filter to your new filter. And let's write our mileage on there. I feel like that's important. So there, April 2025, 198,000 miles, close enough. It's too much trouble to try and feel this. I'll slap a little oil on the seal and call it good. The pump will feel it when I start the truck, hopefully. This is just a bypass filter anyway. Main filter in the pan's doing the majority of the work. All right, that's way too tight. There you go, deep pan, deep filter. Can't hide money. So in my head, a drain and fill on the Allison is 7 quarts. So if you add a gallon capacity to the pan, you need 11 quarts. So I bought 3 gallons. It should have left me an extra quart. Didn't work out that way. Ended up having to buy a whole gallon of Transcend off of Amazon. Did you guys know they updated the spec to 668 from 295/468? I didn't until I went to order some yesterday, and apparently it's backwards compatible. It says it right there. So if you're doing this, just know that 3 gallons won't do it. You're gonna need more, probably. And it sucks because it's like $50 a gallon. Fortunately, I live 20 minutes from an Amazon fulfillment center, so I ordered it last night at 7 and it got delivered to my door this morning at 7. So there's only a couple advantages to living near Atlanta. Fast Amazon shipping and non-stop Delta flights to pretty much everywhere. The rest of it sucks. So, having topped it off, all that's left is to throw my cross member and my skid plate back on and wire up my sensors. Probably going to go ahead and get rid of these Bob the Builder cable terminations because I'm a big fan of heat shrink and race car stuff. So let's do that. All right, I'm going to say short of a test drive, we are done. All right, we've got our temperature sensor wired up with a flaming yellow wire. Same with the trans temp. I will say this, I should have checked this plug before I filled the pan. I actually had a little bit of a leak. I had to tighten that down to arrest the leak, but I think everything's good to go. I thought a good test drive will be taking all my oil samples to the post office because they won't all fit in my mailbox. Well, the truck runs and drives. I've got the engine oil temp, I've got the transmission temp, all the way down to 2 decimal places for some reason. I really need to figure out how to change that because I don't care that much. It's just clutter. We're doing roundabouts. Of course, the drop box has a trash bag over it because if this post office doesn't lose it, somebody will steal it. Scratch that. 4 of the 5 are getting dropped off at the post office at the same time. I'm a big dummy and didn't realize that said UPS. But the postal worker certainly noticed, so not a big deal. Going to the gym, there's a UPS store right by my gym, so they're all going to get put into the mail or UPS box on the same day. Do not worry, I'm not cheating anybody here. Probably. All right, I've been driving around for about a week with these new PPE oil and transmission pans on. Interesting insight. Excuse the hard hat here, I just inspected a dang dam. Anyway, the only time I can get my oil temperature above my engine coolant temperature is when the truck is at full temp, idling, sitting still, and it's hot outside. So maybe that pan cools the oil more than I thought it would. So basically, anytime I'm moving, the engine oil cooler is actually putting heat into the oil. That's weird, but whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and call victory on the engine oil pan install. We've got fresh pans, we've got temperature sensors, we've got the most expensive engine oil I could find, and the next step is to install that centrifuge oil filter. You know what I'm talking about. So thank you for sticking around this long. Please consider smashing that like and subscribe button. Share this with your know-it-all brother-in-law, and as always, stay curious.